What's up, guys? Welcome to the SGN podcast. I'm your host, G.O.A.T, alongside my guest today, Eddie.
Hello, everybody.
And it's been a while since we've done one of these, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Mainly, of course, the fact that Marc Marquez, for the fourth or fifth season in a row now, is pretty much just dominating without any kind of even remote legit adversary. And of course, he's on his way to his eighth title, I think it is now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, might as well be his 80th.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I guess
Mm,
he's probably 25, 26 now, so
yeah,
he is well on his way to not just passing Valentino Rossi, but dwarfing every achievement he's ever had, basically, which is just it's pretty insane to think of. Because
yeah.
I think
Against,
yeah, it's pretty hard, it's pretty insane to think
yeah.
of because
I,
sorry,
no, no, go ahead.
yeah, I think there's a little bit of a delay. So if you guys hear us talking over each other, it's because of that. Um, anyway, so yeah, what I was saying is, like, if you'd have told me when Marc Marquez made his debut in the top class that within 5-6 seasons he would have already surpassed Valentino Rossi, I would have thought you were joking with me. But I mean, what he's done against the amount of talent he's done is it's just insane. Because Rossi did it against guys that were nowhere near his level, but he's Marquez is doing it against Rossi himself, against Lorenzo, against Dovizioso, so against an extremely talented pool.
Yeah, I think almost everybody on the grid is a world champion. So the fact that he is dominating season after season after season says a lot. And yeah, Valentino, when he raced, he would have maybe one person that would actually give him some competition,
Mm-hmm.
but he always had the absolute best bike, the absolute best tires, and um, I mean, seriously, since they swapped over to Bridgestone, Valentino hasn't been dominant like he was when he was on those perfectly for him made Michelins. So I mean, it is very very impressive that um, somebody so young could just hop on a bike, and the Repsol Honda is extremely hard to ride, in the first place, and to be able to go on there and dominate, like, it's almost like he's a clone of Stoner, and he just kept on running with it. It's very impressive.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I mean, of course, coming into MotoGP, everybody knew he was an insanely high touted prospect, and he was eventually going to win a few titles. But I don't think anybody expected anything close to what he's achieved so far. And you never know, something crazy might happen, and knock on wood for the guy, he might get hurt or something like that, and maybe he won't win it this season. But I think that he's pretty much guaranteed already to win it this season. And probably for the next few. Because I mean, like, if you look at the guys that are competing, I mean, Dovizioso, he's an excellent rider, and on his day he can compete with Marquez, and he's beaten him a few times, and he's shown that he has what it takes to at least keep up with him. Not maybe necessarily throughout an entire season, but when the Ducati's going well, when maybe Marquez isn't quite as dominant as he usually is, then Dovi can put it on him, and he has such a high racing IQ that he knows how to deal with Marquez 1v1. And I kind of feel bad for Dovi because if you think about his entire career, except for like 125s, and maybe there was one season in two, but I don't think he ever won a 250 championship, right? I think he
I don't
always,
think so.
yeah, I
No.
think he finished second to Jorge Lorenzo
Lorenzo
every year.
always pipped him for the yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So if you think about it, like his entire career in between 250s and MotoGP, he's pretty much always been second or third best. Like you said, in 250s, Lorenzo beat him every year. In when he moved up to MotoGP, he was of course on the what's the LCR? No, it wasn't the LCR. What was the gray one? The gray Honda. It was
The
the
gray Honda.
wasn't he on a gray Honda when he first moved in? It was like he was the only rider on the team, I think. Uh
Dovi?
yeah, Dovizioso. Let me look it up.
It was probably Cecchinello, which LCR.
Check it. Yeah, I think it was LCR, and he had the so he was always on. He was never on the best bike, and then from there, of course, he went over to Repsol. But unfortunately,
Okay.
his teammates were the great Casey Stoner and
Mhm.
Danny Pedrosa, so not easy at
Right.
all. Then, of course, he was dealing with Jorge Lorenzo in MotoGP, alongside Valentino, who was still towards the top of his towards the peak of his career. So he never had a time where he was the best. And I think that in a lot of different eras, he easily would have won at least one title between 250 or MotoGP. I think he probably would have eventually won it.
Right.
Um, so I feel bad for him, but I guess if you're talking about the as they used to say about Lorenzo and Rossi, they were the extraterrestrials or whatever they used to call them, the aliens. So
Aliens.
so I think if you have it like in 2019, there's basically Marc Marquez who is an alien, and then there's Dovizioso who is the second tier, and then there's pretty much everybody else. I think that's kind of
Right.
the way to put it nowadays. So like he isn't gonna win a title or anything like that, but I think that he can. If he were to end his career now, I think he could probably be pretty satisfied with the fact that he was at the very least able to make it a little bit more difficult for Marquez.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know. He's one of those guys who puts everything he has into it, but he just doesn't have that. I mean, nothing against him, obviously. He doesn't have that level of talent that Marquez has,
Yeah,
or I think maybe the the shark mentality that Lorenzo has, because Lorenzo is he's an amazing racer. I don't think he has the talent that say Marquez or Rossi has. He's definitely at the same level as Dovi, but Lorenzo has that killer instinct.
yeah, I definitely think that Marquez is a guy who's completely on his own in terms of the pure talent he has. I guess maybe you could say Valentino back when he was young, but I think that Marquez is just he's just on a completely different level even than him. So I mean, yeah, I think that Dovizioso he's always had the intelligence on the track, but I think you make a good point. Like he just doesn't have that real killer instinct, and he doesn't have that just win or die mentality. I think he has a lot of times where he's content maybe finish second or third, whereas Lorenzo a lot of times you'll see if he's like 10, 15 seconds back, then sure, but if he's 3 or 4, he'll probably go for it as hard as he can and maybe risk putting himself in the dirt rather than just kind of accepting it. And I think that's kind of maybe something that kind of separates Dovizioso and Nicky Hayden and guys like that from the truly elite racers in history.
Yeah, I think it's all about pushing your will onto the guy in front of you. Because I know, I mean, when I used to race, I always thought more than I did anything else. I mean, obviously nowhere near the level of these guys, but you still have the guys who are willing to, if they see a little spot, they'll try to put their motorcycle in there, you know, consequences be, and those are the people that tend to uh, win more frequently, and a lot of times get titles simply because they are pushing to that absolute limit constantly, so they know even though the odds are going to go down, they know how to control that edge that they're floating on. So, yeah, that's probably his biggest problem is that you know, he just doesn't have that last push to shove somebody out of the way and take that position or that win.
Yeah, he's almost too clean and too nice at times. Of course,
Yeah,
when it's 1v1 with Marquez, he doesn't exactly hold back a lot of times. But I think that sometimes it's just like if he isn't feeling 100% confident, he's just not going to go for it. But when he's on, the guy's extremely tough to deal with too.
I think probably one of the biggest things that if you look at it from a certain point of view, Dovi is actually battling for second in the championship every season.
Yeah,
So for him to possibly go down trying to take first when he can get second, have those points, and basically, pull himself away from everybody else, maybe that's what he's thinking. Give Ducati consistent second place in the title race, make sure that he's the top Ducati guy, and he keeps his ride, and he continues to have an opportunity to win a title. But so I mean, in a way, you can make that is something you could see him doing. But again, that mentality will also keep you from winning a title and races.
yeah, I agree 100%. And I did
Mm,
check. His debut season in MotoGP, he was with the Team Scott Honda. So
that's
yeah, the
right.
gray. It was a nice bike too. I like the color scheme, but it was just
Yeah.
a really garbage bike compared to the other one. I think he at times had some factory equipment at times, but for the most part, I think it was only like for a couple of races. I
Yeah,
could be
because
wrong about
Stoner
that.
started off on the LCR.
Yeah, yep. So and he
Uh,
crashed constantly,
well,
and
that's because he LCR was using Michelin,
hmm
and Michelin were this hasn't been proven, but Michelin were giving certain riders that were very fast, they were giving them tires that would keep them from being able to actually compete with Rossi.
well, I
Um,
don't think that's very shocking. Like if
well,
he,
Stoner talked about it quite a lot,
hmm
and in the end, that's why Stoner swapped over to Bridgestone.
yeah,
He demanded the swap over to Bridgestone because Michelin were giving him inferior tires and he couldn't ride. But I mean, if you remember Stoner, his first MotoGP race for race weekend, he qualified on pole.
hmm
Right? And if I'm not mistaken, he qualified on pole like the first two or three races.
yeah.
And he would be up towards but his tires would never last, or something would go wrong. And uh, he basically demanded that they swap over to Bridgestone, and the team did that. And then Valentino got pissed off because Bridgestone, because Michelin couldn't give him the tires to beat Bridgestone, because Bridgestone, of course, poured a ton of money into it. And then you had Lorenzo on Michelin's, and Rossi demanded to go to Bridgestone, and that's when he put up a wall in between him and Lorenzo. And all he was pissed off because he knew that his advantage was going away. And he knew that Stoner had the talent and the balls to um, to take him down a step, which, in my opinion, that's what Stoner did over and over and over again. You had a few times when Rossi managed to pull one over on Stoner, but for the most part, Stoner would just beat his ass because Stoner has more talent and definitely more daring than Valentino. But then again, Valentino was already what 30 when he started racing against Stoner, who was 22, 23.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a different situation. I think by that point Valentino was pretty soft.
Definitely a different stage of their career. One guy is
Mm,
just starting in. He pretty much has no fear.
right.
He still has so much to do in his career. With other guys, he's already won so many titles. He probably wasn't too interested in risking who knows how much, and just kind of trying to win off of any way he could. And like you said, going from having the perfect tires to where it was basically him, Pedrosa, maybe Gibernau, getting the best tires possible, and then all of a sudden everybody's somewhat on even
Actually,
terms, and things are going worse.
actually, it was only Rossi.
I thought Nicky had some better tires too.
Nope,
No,
nope, nope,
okay. I
nope,
thought it was all. I thought it
nope.
was all the
Um,
factories with Honda and
no, no.
okay.
Valentino, Michelin would talk to Valentino
Mm-hmm.
on Friday night. He would tell them what he needed. They would make the tires and they would have them there on Saturday for
For
practice,
qualifying.
qualifying, and then he would have the perfect tires for race day.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else got that. Nobody.
Okay, I
Um,
recall it being all the major factories.
no, no. They all had Michelin,
Mm-hmm.
and they all could put in their input for tires,
Okay.
but Michelin would only do it for Valentino. Um, and the year that Nicky Hayden won the title, 2006, Tony Elias had been complaining the entire season about Michelin. If they gave him the right tires, he would win, and that he would be at the front, and that Michelin kept screwing him over. So Michelin at Portugal decided to give him um, the tires that he wanted, and he beat Valentino Rossi, which Valentino Rossi was so pissed off that Michelin gave him good tires that is when Valentino started rallying against Michelin and started heading towards going to Bridgestone because he felt like they betrayed him and he lost the title. In his mind, I think he lost the title because of that race. So yeah, um, it was a pretty big deal. It was, I mean, those of us that actually paid attention and those of us who didn't have our head stuck across the anal area, we could see what was actually going on. But everybody else, because Valentino was the great Valentino at the time, and
Yeah, beloved by
obviously
everybody.
MotoGP, they had all their money riding on Valentino, rightly
Yeah,
so. Michelin did. Everybody who had anything to do with well, hell, basically anybody who had anything to do with motorcycle racing needed Valentino to stay as big as he was because, if it wasn't for Valentino Rossi, there would be no MotoGP. I
basically.
mean, of that there is no doubt because I personally don't think that Valentino Rossi is the greatest uh, champion of all times, but I do believe he's probably the greatest racer in terms of image, in terms of being the face of the sport. Nobody will ever, ever, ever compete with Valentino Rossi. Um, he is the absolute man in that, in my opinion. And that's why he was given a lot of the stuff he's given. Now, granted, I'm not saying for any of the listeners, I'm not saying Valentino didn't have talent. Valentino is a massive talent, and he rode two strokes and four strokes. Um, but facts are, if he had if he had been racing in the setup where it is now, where everybody has to use the same electronics package and everybody has the same tires, since they started doing that, Valentino hasn't been able to do shit really. He qualifies like crap, and he's won races, but I think he's only won one title since then, and that was basically because Lorenzo left or whatever it was. I forget what it was. Yeah, and that was more of a luck situation, luck in the terms of one of his competitors couldn't compete.
I think there was a year where Pedrosa and Lorenzo both got hurt. I could be wrong though. I could be very wrong
Yeah,
about that. But regardless,
uh,
yeah, you make some good points there.
yeah,
Yeah, and I don't want it to come across to where we're anti Rossi. I just think that neither one of us have ever been particularly big fans of him, and
mm,
I don't know. I don't generally believe in the whole, this guy's the goat and all that type of stuff. I think that he's, like you said, image wise, he is MotoGP basically. If you think of MotoGP, you think of the yellow 46. That's what you think of. But realistically, I think that Marquez has been showing that when things are even, then there's just nobody that can touch him. It doesn't matter what track it is. It doesn't matter if it's a Honda track, a Yamaha track, a Ducati track. It does not matter. Marquez is going to be right there. Whereas Rossi, unless it's a very special day to where he's on and the Yamaha is going well, he's just not going to be there. Like you said, he qualifies 8th, 7th, 8th, something like that pretty much every week.
yeah,
Based
yeah.
off of his skill alone, he's able to get towards the top 4. But other than that, he's always 10, 15 seconds off the top. He's always, he's never really competing against Dovizioso, against Marquez, against even Quartararo nowadays. You know what I mean? So it's like I think it just kind of goes to show you that there's a difference in skill, and he is almost 40 now, or he may already be 40 actually. But
He's 40.
yeah, so I mean that could be a factor there, but realistically, I think that he's been getting his ass beat for so long now that anybody who uses that as an excuse is just kind of he's just kind of defending him a little bit unmeritedly.
Well, I think more than anything, the person who's racing has to decide um, if where they stand in terms of their competition. And now, if if either one of us had ever raced a MotoGP bike or even ridden a MotoGP bike, then I think it would be much easier for us to say. Um, I think Rossi, Rossi, in my opinion, the last 7, 8 years has been at the level that he's at now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think that he's dropped a level. in terms of his speed and things like that. I think where Rossi's problem is that he can't step it up, whereas in the rest of his career he was always able to find that extra and get himself pushed forward. But I think now he can't do that. He can't find that extra link. And until he decides either A, he can't do it, or B, he'd rather not risk his legacy, then he's going to keep racing, which keep racing, do whatever you want. Um, I would love to see him somehow manage to pull it out and, cut 10, 15 seconds out of his, race time overall. I don't think he's going to do it because you just saw him, in Austria. He wasn't that far back. He was what, 10 seconds back,
I think
maybe
so. Yeah,
8
more or
seconds
less.
back. I mean, still behind Quartararo, who was really pushing hard to stay in third. But I think that he's just as long as he's okay with finishing in fifth. I think that he'll probably keep going because he signed for another 2 years. I think it was
I think.
to 20 and 21.
I know for a fact he says he's in the race next year. I think he has a contract, of course, for another 2 years. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
he's going on a year by year basis based on an interview I saw
Uh,
recently where his contract is there. So if he wants to keep on going, they can't get rid of him. But if he wants to
right,
retire, then of course he can just retire. So
right.
he's kind of going off of
Well,
that.
this is what I think Rossi should do. I mean, obviously, it doesn't really mean anything to anybody, but um, Rossi needs to get off of the factory Yamaha. He needs to set up a MotoGP team. He needs to ride on the MotoGP team with a solid rookie guy. Maybe bring in his stepbrother or half brother, whatever. I think he's his half brother,
Yeah.
and and the two of them. Can you imagine just the marketing alone? You know, two Italians, one of the greatest Italian racers of all time, uh, paired up with his brother, who just moved up from Moto 2, if he was to move up Moto 2,
Yeah.
you know, race it himself for one season and bring in another rookie, an Italian rookie or whatever, and then roll with it like that, and then retire and run your own team. He could be like Agostini and just travel around the world, you know, trying to find groupies and, being a man whore.
Yeah. That's always a good idea. You could do worse.
Yeah, not that I'm saying it's okay to be a man whore.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think that if there's anybody who could pull it off, it's probably him, especially because he already has a team in Moto. Is it Moto 3 where he has Team Sky, or is it also Moto 2?
Moto 3 and Moto
He
2.
has both. Yeah, so why not just add it? I'm sure Sky has the money, as long and of course backing him, he can probably guarantee them 2 seasons to where it's going to make him make a bunch of money, and then go from there. And then he just runs it, and he's always going to be the face of it. So there's always going to be sponsors. There's never going to be a lack of people interested in giving money to Valentino Rossi and anything that he's representing.
Mm,
So they always have the AGV, the Dainese. They're always going to have those big links. So
right.
and he could pretty much pick any manufacturer. They're all going to want to give him a good bike and all, and the good mechanics and all that stuff. Not that he needs it, because I'm sure he can find his own people. But regardless, I mean, like, I think it would definitely be a solid idea for him, and one that
Well,
would
I think
definitely kind of help him go to the next part of his career.
the biggest thing probably back is the fact that you can't just put a bike on the grid.
Yeah, it takes a
So
lot.
they already have the maximum. So he would have to buy out another team, which isn't going to happen because everybody who's owns a team in MotoGP is pretty dead set that they want to be there, and they're all passionate and they all have money. So I think maybe he's waiting for the right opportunity. Um, I don't know. We'll see. I think that my opinion, he should obviously stick with Yamaha because he really knows the Yamaha, and he has a special relationship with them. So maybe they come up with two more satellite Yamahas, but who knows?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, I guess we'll have to
Mm.
see. I think he's probably, as of right now, it's based on some of the interviews I've seen between him and his crew chief and stuff. It seems like he's probably still dead set on doing another season or two with the factory Yamaha, and then who knows what. I think he's probably still kind of just hoping that maybe he can take that next step forward or something. But I don't know. It seems like that's kind of the case. Like he hasn't given up hope, but I don't know. I think that like you were kind of talking about off air. I think it's kind of a matter of him kind of coming into the idea, not coming into the idea, adapting to the idea of he's not going to be a top 3 rider anymore, or at least not consistently.
Mm.
He's sometimes not going to be even a top 5 rider consistently. So realistically, he's one of those guys that he's gonna be towards the middle of the pack. At times, he can maybe get a podium. At times, he can put on the race of his life and be battling for first, stuff like that. But I kind of put him, and this is kind of a weird thing to say, but I think that he's like a more consistent Crutchlow in kind of a way. Like Crutchlow, he's gonna crash a lot,
Yeah,
but at least
yeah,
Rossi's not gonna crash and waste a bunch of money for you.
right.
So I think
Well,
that's kind of the level.
Rossi's guaranteed top 10 in the points. I
Yeah,
mean, even now he's like fifth, I think. He is, yeah, fifth in points. He's 127 back from Marquez.
yeah,
So I mean, that's respectable for a guy. I don't want to say his age, but a guy who is, well, basically he's racing against people who are literally half his age.
yeah. They could
You
literally be
know?
his kids in some ways, in
Yeah,
some respects.
they
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
And especially like the guys Quartararo and Morbidelli.
yeah.
Morbidelli, once he really kind of gets a better grip on the M1, he's going to be up there with Quartararo. And Vinales, I don't know what to think of Vinales because it's been what, 2 seasons now, 3 seasons now that he's really had a lot of issues with the Yamaha. Um, so I don't know what to say about him. Normally, you would be able to look at a team and say, okay, this side of the garage is doing really, really well, and this side of the garage is doing like shit. So that must mean that the shit side either A, can't race anymore, or B, has a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that the teams, they share information, and within the teams, the satellite teams share information factory and vice versa. So there is no you can't see my data anymore. So the fact that Vinales is having just as hard a time as Rossi. I mean, as a matter of fact, Vinales is in sixth in the championship, 1 point behind Valentino. Um, and I think Vinales has crashed out of 1 or 2 races this season, so that would explain why he's in sixth. But he really hasn't lit up the world. So it's kind of hard to say. It's one of those things where is Rossi actually able to pick it up, which I don't think he can. Um, and then if it turns out that it's the riders, then why are they keeping Vinales on the bike?
That's
Maybe
a
it's
good
time to
question.
bring somebody else over. It's time to put Quartararo on a factory M1 and send Vinales somewhere else because they're not going to get rid of Rossi,
No,
especially
that's a
since he
bad
has another
business move.
contract.
Yeah, for them for their point of view. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I've been wondering that for a while now too, because when he came into MotoGP, I think he had a few races there where he was looking insane, right? Vinales, he was looking just fast as hell.
yeah. He won the first 3 races,
Yeah, and then he just went straight
and
down.
yeah, the bike because Valentino was riding like shit as well.
Yeah,
And the bike just they changed the frame, and he had no choice. And when that happened, he basically he lost all feeling. So he crashed a lot, and he was constantly complaining about it. And it seemed like ever since then, it's just nothing's worked, nothing's worked. And you could turn around and say, they did that because they wanted Rossi to be at the front, but Rossi isn't doing shit either. So that's
Exactly.
obviously not the case. So I don't know. You can't say the Yamahas are shit because the satellite guys are kicking pretty good ass on those bikes. Quartararo's in seventh. He's right behind Vinales, and Morbidelli's in 12th. I mean, he's pretty far back there, but I think Morbidelli's crashed a few races as
He
well.
has,
So,
yeah.
and he's not obviously not as strong as Quartararo from the get go.
Hmm.
When he first threw a leg over that Yamaha, he was very fast, and now Quartararo's got 3 poles. Pause. Um, so um, I think he's definitely an exception.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was thinking about this when I was watching the race the other day. Is like it's almost like when Rossi was at his peak, he pretty much
Mm-hmm.
always had a guy alongside of him who was excellent, not just good, but excellent at developing a bike. Whether it was Nicky Hayden, whether it
Uh,
was Carlos
that's a very
Colin
good point.
Edwards, even Jorge Lorenzo. That
Yeah,
Yamaha was
true.
great before when Rossi came back to it. So it's not
Right.
like Lorenzo was just doing his thing and just kind of chilling off
Mm-hmm.
of Rossi stuff. It was the other way around. Um, so I think that could be a thing. Rossi's gotten a lot of credit over the years for being this great developer of bikes, but realistically, I think a lot of it had to do with maybe Edwards and Nicky doing it. They were pretty well known for that. So, and most
Well, it's
importantly,
funny.
sorry to interrupt. Most importantly, they were two guys that were not in the least bit going to be an asshole towards their teammate. Anything they were doing, they were 100% going to
Right.
be more than open to helping their teammate. Whereas Rossi, Lorenzo, they aren't, and probably Vinales too. They aren't exactly like that. But now it's open,
Mm-hmm.
so okay. But yeah, I think that's definitely something to take into consideration.
Well, that's a good point. And then when when Rossi swapped from the Honda to Yamaha back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's actually funny because Carlos Checo was on that bike before him, the
That's right.
seasons before him, and Carlos Checa was great at developing, and he developed the Yamaha. And right in the last season that Checa was on there, he was on the brink of winning lots of races. I mean, he was very competitive, week in, week out. And when Rossi went in, he jumped on a bike that was developed at a high level, and all he had to do was go in, turn some screws, and put in his talent. Because of course, nothing is Checo, but Valentino Rossi, I think, has a bit more talent. Not to mention a lot more confidence after winning
Oh,
all the
for sure.
titles. Um,
Completely different
and
thing.
then he got on there and he won. His first race on that Yamaha, he won, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's magic." Well, the reality is, Carlos Checa and Max Biaggi, for that matter, developed that bike to where it was, and he jumped on a damn good package. All he did was finish it off, and that's a really good point. Maybe the issue that Yamaha has now is that with Vinales and Rossi, neither one of them are particularly good at developing. They're more they're just good at maybe tweaking something that's already perfect. Because Valentino Rossi is not known for being a guy who can take something that is nowhere near perfect and put it on the podium.
Exactly.
He's he's not known to be that. That's why he suffered on the Ducati. Because whereas Stoner would get on the Ducati and he would just turn the throttle and he'd wrangle the thing around the track. Whereas as soon as Rossi tried to do it, he'd find himself on his head. Again, nothing against Rossi because he has a different style, a different way of riding than Stoner. I mean, it's kind of the difference between Nicky Lauda and Hunt, Ethan Hunt, or no, whatever Hunt, in Formula One back in the '80s. One was was very precise and knew exactly where to be, and everything needed to be perfect. Whereas the other one, Hunt, just freaking turn the key and let's do this, and would try to manhandle it around. Of course, one of them is dead now, and the other one is not. Actually, no, I take that back. Niki Lauda just died like a few
Yeah,
months
he
ago.
did.
Rest
Yeah.
in peace, big boy.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah. So, shall we move on from the Rossi bashing?
Yep. Well, I haven't pause. I guess we
Yeah.
haven't really. I haven't personally watched the E series yet. I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
They've already done a couple races, right? They did Sachsenring. They did. What else did they do?
They've
They've
done
done
Sexering.
Catalunya, I think.
Yes, they've done Catalonia. They've done Sachsenring, and they've done the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Now
I
that
just haven't had time to even watch MotoGP, so let alone eat the E series. But how's it been going?
Well, I haven't been able to watch too many races either because obviously we both this time of year you and I are both working a lot. Um, I think it's exactly how you would expect. Marquez is basically dominating. He's winning. If he isn't winning, he's coming in second. I think he's won every race except for one, which is obviously the one Red Bull Ring this past weekend where Dovi won on the last lap pass or a last corner pass, which was because it's becoming his trademark there when it comes to Marquez. Then you've got, I think the biggest thing is watching Quattararo and see what he's going to do. If he's going to be up there at the front. Miller's done pretty well. He got on the podium once. It's honestly, it's becoming pretty steady. It's the last 2 3 seasons, even though the racing is tighter and there's a lot more passing, and I think it's a lot more fun to watch. Um, the reality is, it's basically still the same people doing the same thing over and over again. So it's one of those things where you don't actually need to watch the race; you just watch the highlights because the rest of it is kind of boring. Uh, I think we need some new people to pop up, and maybe Yamaha needs to really take a step forward. The Ducati needs to take another step. Suzuki's really getting there. Rins is fourth in the championship, which is pretty damn good considering the Suzuki has been having issues.
Hmm.
But I don't know if that's because Suzuki is doing so well or because the factory Yamahas are doing so shit. So I'm not really sure about that yet. Um, let's see. I know the KTM's are really struggling. The factory Aprilia is just horrible. But of course, that's probably because they put Iannone on it. He's not exactly the greatest development rider either.
He's not even the best at not fucking wasting millions of euros.
He's definitely a great bowler because
That's
it
for
seems
sure.
like he's always taking down people. But I think now the good thing about him being on the Aprilia is he isn't even fast enough to take people down because by the time he gets to that point, they're already gone.
Yeah, it was always a matter of who's he gonna take out this time.
Right, right. When he was on the factory Ducati, it was like, oh God, and you could almost see it in the racers whenever they would see him around or hear his bike, they would be like, oh damn it, another thing to worry about. But yeah. Um, Apart from that, I don't think there's too much news within MotoGP. There's the rumor that Jorge Lorenzo offered his services next year to Ducati, supposedly taking Jack Miller's ride, which is just absolutely ludicrous. How anybody could think that was even remotely possible
Yeah,
is an idiot.
that's stupid
I
as hell.
mean, I mean, why would he go back to a bike that he's not going to do shit on when he's on a bike that he can do something, but he's just always injured? I mean, I think somebody's just trying to get things stirred up.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like I think that at this point, Lorenzo, his season is pretty much over. Like there's really nothing he's gonna do. He's still hurt, right? Like I've seen he's always limping.
Yeah,
He's always in pain. So at this point, this it's already well over halfway through the season. just sit the rest of the season out. Have them bring in a wild card or something like that, and somebody's gonna let Lorenzo heal up, actually get healthy for the first time in a few years, and see if he can
Yeah.
actually do something. Because it seems like the guy, he's been constantly. I think that he's probably a little bit too. I don't know. He's too determined for his own good at this point because he clearly is suffering to the fact that he's just not being able to do anything, and people are just constantly just going after him, talking shit about him. I think that he's probably at the point where he's desperately trying to show that he's still Jorge Lorenzo. So it pushes him to come back way too early, and he inevitably gets hurt again because even a minor crash is going to hurt him. And he's just consistently putting himself in a worse and worse spot. So at this point, I would honestly, like as a Lorenzo fan, I would like to see him sit out the rest of the season, or at least sit out a few races, and just recover and just focus on his recovery. And next season, start off hopefully healthy for him, and see if maybe he can actually get himself up there. I'm not saying he has to win the championship, but at least battle
Right.
for the top three. It's Lorenzo we're talking about. We're not talking about and we're not talking about Crutchlow. We're talking about Jorge
Right.
Lorenzo.
Right. I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so Moto E.
Yeah. What do we? That's what I was actually mentioning. I said when I mentioned the E series, I said I meant that, but we went on the. I guess it was a.
Yeah, well,
We had to talk
it
about this.
happens.
Yeah, it's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good. We had this. This was part of the plan anyway to discuss that. So yeah, the E
Right.
series. That's what I was saying. Like I haven't been able to watch any of these races. Like I've seen some MotoGP over
Mm,
the past few weeks. I watched the Austrian GP, and I think I watched Brno as well. But before that, I think I missed a couple.
hmm
But I haven't seen the E series at
Yeah.
all. The E Championship.
Well, because all their bikes got stolen.
I
Oh
heard
no, no,
about
I'm
that.
sorry.
No,
There was a fire. There
that's
was a
right. Yeah, they
fire.
all got destroyed. Yeah.
Right. So the season started much later.
Mm,
So I think they only had two. They've only had two race weekends so far. So the series isn't exactly well worked out yet. I think even the riders have to see how it goes.
yeah,
The lineup, as we discussed on another podcast, the lineup is excellent. They got
for
some
sure.
really fast guys out there. Um, so it ought to be, I think, probably next season should be pretty damn good, I think. And for me, the idea of racing an electric motorcycle is, I like that prospect. I think it has so much potential with torque and the way it moves and all that. It must be a lot of fun to ride. Um, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's really good. I mean, I'm even like on Instagram. I'm followed by Alex DeAngelis.
Yeah, you
I
told me about
don't know
that.
how
Yeah.
the I don't know how that happened, and then a whole bunch of guys from Pramac Ducati. That happened last year. I don't know why, but it's not like I know any of those guys. So
Mm-hmm. Hey, well, you
I
never
guess
know.
it's just me, my bubbling personality.
Yeah, it has to be. Maybe we can
Yeah,
build this eventually and get to a point where we can interview one of them or something like that. That'd be pretty cool.
yeah. I'll give him a call. I'll
Yeah, for
call
sure.
Uncle Valentino.
See if we, yeah, or you can just call Uncle Graziano and see if we can get a whole
Yeah.
meal at his house or something like that and discuss a few things.
Yep.
Maybe make some business ideas, of course. Talk a few things out,
Yeah.
and maybe we can
We could
get
do some laps at the
yeah,
ranch.
yeah, for sure. We can get
Hmm.
we'll get number 12 on a few of the major bikes and stuff like that. Maybe we can
There you go.
get your name out there. Maybe who knows? Maybe the EK comebacks on its way. I mean, the fucking Joe Roberts is a Moto 2. Why can't you be in? I hope GK
Yeah,
hears this.
I'll take Moto E, but yeah,
Yeah.
I could easily take JR's bike.
No, I don't think that's too
Mm.
difficult.
That I
Oh
mean,
god.
I'm sure I could do better than 25th,
Yeah.
28th.
Hey, he's swag though. He's got the swag.
Yeah, he's got that model look for some
Yeah.
reason, which
Whatever
makes
that
a big
means.
difference.
But whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
whatever works. He's in Moto 2 for a reason, which I guess we don't know why, but he's there.
yeah, because his manager bought the team.
That could be the reason.
If it's any consolation, he races for a team that uses KTM, and
Mhm.
KTM is leaving Moto2 after the season because they've done a shit job. because
Yeah.
KTM is horrible in Moto2. That is a reality.
Hmm.
Um, I still think if you put him on a good bike like a Kalex or something like that, something that's really good, I think he could do much better than he is. Just to put that on record. But as of right now, he's shit, and Gianluca loves him, so I'm gonna make fun of him.
Considering the amount of shit that he gives to me for
Yeah,
the various things that I like or in sports and stuff like that, then
yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
pretty much extremely called for to go after the very few things that he likes that just happen to be
yeah. I
trash.
agree.
He's a
I
bandwagoner
agree.
for the most part, so he's only gonna like stuff that goes well. So, um,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
So
That's
I guess
true.
Jr. is the only thing that's trash that he likes. So you have to go
Yep.
after him as hard as you can.
Yeah. Pause.
That's true. Pause button. If there's anybody's gonna go ram him as hard as he can, it's gonna be me.
Yeah, that's it. It's not good at all.
No,
Not good at all.
but we always have to
All
have
right.
a few gay things in the podcast, so
Of course,
it's a
of
great way to
course.
wrap it up.
Rainbow flags, my friend. Rainbow
Exactly.
flags.
Any closing remarks?
Nope. I think I've made my opinions very clear,
Mm-hmm.
very good. Uh, yeah. If you guys like the podcast and wants to keep going, then make sure you like and you subscribe and then you comment. Um, and make sure you comment pause dot
That's how we know that
dot
you're a true fan.
dot. Yeah. The we're gonna call it the Pause Nation.
Yeah, that's the way you do it. Yeah, so hopefully you guys definitely enjoyed it. A lot more of these are on the way. We've both been extremely busy, with our work schedules being, of course, very different as well. So hopefully, in the next few weeks, especially in September, when things, especially where I am, things get a little bit easier. And we'll be doing these hopefully before every weekend. And yeah, it should be good. MotoGP is unfortunately kind of stale in terms of who's winning, but there's always plenty of stuff to talk about and plenty of things to discuss. So hopefully you guys will tune in, and we'll see you next episode. See you guys.
Bye guys.